Hello. So what is blood sugar? I'm sure you've been told a bunch of stuff that is dangerous, that is not dangerous, that it may be okay for you but not okay for somebody else. But what it really is, don't worry, I'm going to explain everything. So take a look here. This is the wall of your blood vessels. And this is what we call blood sugar, which is in scientific terms is called glucose. Basically, when you have too much, then this glucose, it's sharp, so you can damage the wall of the vessels like this. The problem with this is that if there is a damage, then all the cholesterol will build up in the walls of the vessels, trying to block this hole, basically. This is a big model, which doesn't look like a body, but this is what you're gonna end up having in your body. So this is a vessel without any plaque, without any diabetes, and this is a vessel that was damaged by high sugar and eventually developed plaque. So you can see red blood cells here move up without any obstacles, freely delivering blood and oxygen to all the different organs. Red blood cells here can't move. So this will cause a heart attack, this will cause a stroke, and potentially can even cause death. But is glucose alone, is it enough to diagnose diabetes? Sometimes. If your fasting glucose is more than 126 twice, then your doctor can diagnose you with diabetes. But the problem with the glucose is it's not consistent. 1 minute you can be starving and your glucose can even be low. The next moment you eat something sugary, your glucose will shoot up. So that's why doctors and scientists developed another measure called hemoglobin A1c. Hemoglobin A1c basically tells you how much sugar is on average in your blood vessels during the last 3 months. So let me show you and explain to you what happens. Basically, this is a red blood cell, nice and round, floats in your arteries and your vessels. But if there is a lot of sugar in your arteries and vessels, they will bind to the red blood cells. Basically, they will stick on top of it. Basically, it's what happens is basically like you dip an apple into the caramel. So your red blood cells was nice and shiny like an apple, but then you dip it in your sugary blood in the vessels with a lot of sugar, and all of the sugar will stick to the red blood cells. So this is a much more sophisticated way of diagnosing diabetes. It will tell us, again, as I said, the average blood glucose in your body for the last 3 months. So we don't care if one day it's low, one day it's high, we're going to know the average. If your A1c is more than 6.5, you have the diagnosis of diabetes. So why are we talking about 3 months? It all has to do with the fact that the red blood cells live for 3 months. So basically we look at the red blood cells from birth to death and see how much sugar got stuck on it during this period. Then we measure it, and if your A1c is more than 6.5, unfortunately you have a diagnosis of diabetes. If your A1c is from 5.7 to 6.4, you have what's called pre-diabetes. So you're at a very high risk of becoming a diabetic, but you still have a chance to reverse everything with exercise, diet, and maybe you can avoid this fate. So there are 2 ways to diagnose diabetes. Number 1, good old glucose. If your fasting glucose is more than 126, then unfortunately you have diabetes. The better way is hemoglobin A1c. If your hemoglobin A1c is more than 6.5, then again, unfortunately you have diabetes. So I hope I explained everything.